it is Milteer, and welcome. I am very, very excited today. We have someone who is an extremely good author and speaker. His name is David Essel, and we're going to be talking about his book today, which is called Positive Thinking Will Change Your Life. Will never change your life, and we'll be talking about that. But let me tell you all about David, because he's someone who should be on your radar. He's the author of 10 books. He's a master life coach and teacher. He teaches in business. He teaches about relationships, addiction recovery. He's an international speaker, a radio TV host. Now, he's gone from an athlete to a poet. He has been labeled a 21st century Renaissance man, which I really like, for his ability to inspire millions of people through the combination of his creative, authentic philosophies, energies, and drive. Now, in the last 30 years, his professional presentations have drawn rave reviews from Fortune 500 companies around the world. He's very familiar with entrepreneurs. And for fun, just so you know, he's an avid tennis player, and he spends every free moment he can at the beach. And since I live at the beach, I can certainly appreciate that. And we're going to focus today again on David's book, Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life. By the way, I enjoy your work because we need more people who will be able to shatter the myth of the power of positive thinking alone. So welcome, David.
Lee, it's great to be with you. I love your energy, and oh my gosh, we've got so much to cover and to go over for your audience. And you had mentioned something, about the bridging of the worlds. We have, the world out there that people see that is mainly given to us and shoved down our throat by mass consciousness, which is advertising, promotion, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have the real world. The world where people know their intuition is correct and they know their hunches are accurate. And I'm getting chills right now as I speak, Lee, because the two worlds are so different. The one world is telling us that we're not enough, that if we only had this body, this money, this relationship, this whatever it might be, life would be great. That's the fake world. And then the real world is throw all that crap away and just love yourself and do what you love and do what you're passionate about, and everything will really work out fine. It's so true,
It absolutely is. And when I first got your book, David, I read every page of every book, which I'm always very proud of. And when I got to the dedication, you dedicated the book to Wayne Dyer, and I am like a huge fan of Wayne Dyer's. I had the wonderful opportunity walking on the beach in Hawaii once to meet him, and he gave me a book. By the way, I think he had a baby carriage like full of books, and that was so Wayne. And I had the opportunity to speak on stage with him. But I'd like for you to share how Wayne Dyer really, affected your life and why you dedicated the book to him.
Yeah, Lee, it's such a great question. I mean, he positively affected so many millions of people. And what's really interesting to me is that the first time I interviewed him was in 1990. And in 1990, he was already a huge a star. He was a massive, massive success in 1990. And a lot of people didn't get introduced to his work until around 2000, the late 90s and 2000. But I swear this guy was out there kicking butt for a long time. Before I tell my story with him, I got to tell you a story he told me that matches kind of your story of him on the beach with a baby carriage full of books. So, people I am so against the law of attraction and The Secret and all that crap, Lee. It's a bunch of crap. And we've proven in our book, the book that you're talking about right now, Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life, but this book will, the myth of positive thinking, the reality of success. The aura that Wayne gave off to the world was that, if you do align your thoughts in certain ways, life will reward you. And that was one of his many teachings. But, a lot of people get pigeonholed. And, Wayne got pigeonholed in this arena. Deepak gets pigeonholed in his arenas, And so I said to Wayne, I said, hey, listen, your first book became your Erroneous Zones. Your first book became this massive, massive seller. And I was teasing him in 1990. And I said, did you imagine it into success? Did you visualize it into success? But in actuality, Lee, from 1980 to 1996, I used to teach this crap called the law of attraction. So I was teasing him, but I was also being, sort of like, hey, give us the secret of how you sold so many books. The story he told is the story that our listeners need to hear, and all entrepreneurs know this is the truth. You are not going to visualize millions of books being sold. You're not going to affirm millions of books getting sold. It doesn't mean that I'm saying to you, don't use visualization and don't use affirmation. Use them for the 10 seconds a day you need them and get the hell on with your life and do what Lee does or what Wayne did. And that is this. I said, how did that book become so popular? And he said, let me tell you the truth, David, because when the book came out, I get a call from my publisher after a month or two saying, we are not doing well. We don't know what's going on. Everyone, the reviews are incredible, but we're not selling. So I said to Wayne, so what did you do? He goes, well, I did what any entrepreneur would do. He said, I was living in Detroit. Now remember, back in the 80s, bookstores were huge, right? We didn't have the internet.
Yes.
There was no Amazon.com to buy your books. And he said, I went to every bookstore in Detroit, and there were a lot of bookstores, and I bought every one of my books off the shelf. He said a couple weeks later, I get a call from my publisher saying, Wayne, we don't know what's going on. This is incredible. Like, these stores keep reordering. And then, he said, then, David, what happened next was the momentum of me investing time, money, and effort into my own career took off because the bookstores started talking amongst themselves about, hey, do you have any Wayne Dyer books? And he said, everyone said it must be a great book because there's none left. So we started selling more and more books. And, for 27 years, Lee, I hosted a nationally syndicated radio talk show, Westwood One, we were with for 10 years, Premier Radio a number of years, XM Satellite Radio a number of years. And as we do all these things, and I have Wayne on my show, 1990, I'm just starting my radio career. And at the end of the interview, he looks at me and he says, hey, what can I do to help you out? And I said, what do you mean? And I'm sitting here thinking, this is Wayne Dyer. He's already sold 1 million books. This guy doesn't need to be helping me for anything. But he said, no, David, I'm serious. What do you need? What can I do? And I said, let me think about it. And he came back a couple months later and he said, hey, I made an offer. I haven't heard from you. How can I help your career? Lee, that was the type of guy Wayne was. And I said, Wayne, would you mind giving us an endorsement? He goes, would I mind? He said, no, I'll give it to you right now. And then he gave us this most outrageous endorsement is that, David Essel's destiny is to help you become more alive in every area of life. And that was when Wayne believed that my destiny was, and he believed that my work in radio and writing and everything was leading me to that. And it's something I'll never forget, and we interviewed a bunch of times past then. And the anniversary of his death was just the other day. And he's still in, my heart, your heart, and millions of other people, Lee.
Absolutely. Another story we won't go into deeply, Wayne used to talk about on stage about, selling that first book and how he would pile as many books into the back of his car as he could get. And he went from small town to small town, offering to do free radio shows, free TV shows. He said, if there's media in that town, we were on it. Now, this is, in today's world, most people have this illusion that you just write the book and then magically things happen out in the world. But we're on the earth plane where, there has to be where people actually put forth some effort. So with that said, and we love you, Wayne Dyer, wherever you are, you've left a lot of legacy in your life.
Absolutely.
So David, one of my first questions, which really is, right out of your book is, why positive thinking really won't change your life? Because, I've heard this my entire life. And by the way, I teach this stuff too. So I think people really want to know why positive thinking alone will not work.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this, and from 1980, when I started in the world of personal growth until 1996, Lee, I was all over the world speaking that whatever you believe you can achieve, and your thoughts do create your reality. And as long as your thoughts are positive, you're inevitably going to have a great life, make a ton of money, have a great body, blah, blah, blah. So I taught it because I was a parrot. I was a parrot. I was looking at my gurus. I was believing everything they said. I didn't look at, did it work? I just looked at, hey, if Wayne and Deepak and Napoleon Hill, who never said anything about positive thinking changing your life, by the way, his book, Think and Grow Rich, there's not one mention in his book, Lee. I've read that book so many times. There's not one mention that he ever says you can think and grow rich. Okay, so.
That's absolutely true. I know that to be true.
Yeah, there's no, so, 1980 to 1996, I'm teaching these philosophies. I'm traveling the world, speaking to large groups, telling people, and we're getting standing ovations because who doesn't want to hear that? Who doesn't want to hear, hey, if you just have a great mindset, you can create anything. It sounds so fun. It's such crap, but it sounds so fun. 1996, we have the most powerful interview I've ever done in my life, by far, with the founder of Transcendental Meditation. His name was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi started TM, Transcendental Meditation, in 1956, the year I was born, as a matter of fact. 1958, 59, the Beatles got a hold of it. They went nuts. It radically changed every one of the Beatles' lives. And they said to Maharishi back then, we are going to make your program famous. They didn't say they're going to make Maharishi famous. They said, we're going to make your Transcendental Meditation program famous. And they did. 1988, I take the intensive TM course. Now I'm a huge TM fan. I'm doing Transcendental Meditation every day. And in 1996, Lee, we get this call from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's office saying that it is the 40th anniversary of Transcendental Meditation. Maharishi has selected one media outlet in the United States to celebrate it, and it's yours.
Wow.
And we lost it. He could have went to Larry King. He could have went to Howard Stern. He could have went to freaking anyone, Lee, with audiences much larger than ours at the time, but he chose ours. And here's where my world was shattered by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. During a break, we're sitting talking, and he says to me, hey, he goes, you're a huge fan of this positive thinking and creating a different reality. And I said, absolutely. He goes, are your positive thoughts that you have daily, are your affirmations, now I want our listeners to really listen closely to this, are your affirmations your reality?
Great question.
And I'll tell you, if you follow The Secret and The Law of Attraction and all those books, the answer is going to be no. The answer is going to be no. My affirmations are not my reality. Why? Because we're taught to do insane things, like to lie to ourselves every day by saying, I am a millionaire when we're earning $50,000 a year. That's called a lie. I own 3 houses in Bali while you're living wherever you're living. If you don't own 3 houses in Bali, you're lying. Maharishi knew that. And he must have known there was something about me that I was not being honest about. So he said to me, what is your most powerful affirmation that you say every day? I go, oh my God, I've been saying it for over 20 years now, Maharishi. He goes, what is it? I said, I am David Essel, a child of God, happy, healthy, and sober today. And he goes, that's really beautiful. Is it your reality? And I lied. And I said, yes. He said, good, and then keep doing it. He goes, but that's the only thing I want to mention about your thoughts is that if you're having thoughts or affirmations that are your reality, keep saying them. If you're having thoughts or affirmations that you're pretending are your reality, then you need to change and get back into your reality, David. And he laughed and giggled because he's very much like the Dalai Lama. Every freaking question I asked him, Lee, all he could do is go, whoa, 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 David, that is really good. He was about this big. He was like this tall. He had gray hair down to his butt. He looked like Cousin It from the Addams Family. He was the nicest freaking guy in the world. And yet, Lee, he's calling me out. 3 weeks later, I'm at a conference in Orlando speaking on stage. I get off stage. A woman comes up to me and says, David Essel, I just flew in from Iowa. I have a 20-minute interview time with you, and then I got to fly out. And I said, what magazine are you with? She goes, I'm not. I'm with Maharishi. I said, he sent you here? She said, yeah, to interview for 20 minutes. And we sat down. I said, what does he want to know? She said, he has one question for you. What do you remember from the interview you did with him 3 weeks ago? And I go, you know what? And Lee, this is the truth. I couldn't remember a thing. Like if it was Deepak, I'd say the 7 keys to spiritual healing. If it was Wayne, I'd say the 4 keys to whatever. You know, Maharishi, I couldn't remember a thing. And finally she goes, oh, come on, David, you must remember something. And I go, oh, yeah. I said, the only thing I can remember is that guy had more joy than a little kid. And she said, okay, I'm going to tell you something that's going to rock your world probably. You won't understand it now, but you'll get it down the road. The reason you remember his words and his joyfulness is because you don't have any joy. Now, think about this, Lee. 3 weeks earlier, Maharishi had pulled the rug from underneath my feet. Even though I lied, I was an alcoholic and a cocaine addict. And every day I woke up telling myself that I was sober, which was an absolute lie. But see, we're taught to use affirmations as a way to sort of like project into the future, which is an absolute lie. So if you're size 18 and you wake up every day saying, I am a size 6, you're lying to yourself. And what happens to all those lies? Does it boost your self-confidence and self-esteem, or does it lower it? Well, if you're lying to yourself every day, you have no integrity at all. And I'm just being brutally open and honest because I didn't have integrity. For 16 years, I'm teaching crap. I'm teaching stuff that isn't real, and it never worked in my life. So now we fast forward. I have that interview with that girl. At the end of the interview, I go, okay, I'm done. I love Maharishi. I'm not sure about you. You just told me I have no joy. I didn't want to hear that, Lee. Another 3 weeks go by. Tuesday afternoon, 1996, 2:30. I wake up from a 4-day alcohol cocaine binge again at 2:30 in the afternoon. At around 6 at night, I look in the mirror and I say, David Essel, you have no joy. You cannot be a food addict, a nicotine addict, a drug addict, an alcoholic, a television addict, I need to be right addict. You can't be any type of an addict and be filled with joy. And so it was a wake-up call. And as I look backwards, Lee, I said, well, I've been lying to myself for all these years. No wonder I have no joy. I'm an alcoholic, I'm a cocaine addict, and I'm a liar. Wow. What a great, and I'm doing what I'm doing right now. You know, I'm traveling the world, making a ton of money, living on the beach, blah, 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 blah. All those great improvements of the human lifestyle, but none of that matters when you are lying to yourself. And so the world of positive thinking, we say, hey, stay there. 20% of your success will be based on how you think. 80% will be based on what you do on a daily basis. And my success started in 1996 with sobriety. That's where my real success in life started. And I quit lying to myself, Lee. And I have to tell you this. I wrote for 20 years, I wrote books, and we never had a #1 bestseller until the book you hold in your hands. Until the book, Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life, came out, we never had a #1 bestseller. There it is. And what the editors told me and everyone told me when the book is coming out, they said, David, one of two things is going to happen. Your career is going to blow up bigger than it is, or you're going to be working in a convenience store. Because, and there's nothing wrong with convenience stores, but because you're taking on an industry, you're taking on Oprah, The Secret, The Law of Attraction, you're taking on a mass, so you're either going to really rock it and roll it, or you're going to flop. Good luck. And that was their answers to me, you know, and I just had the ultimate confidence, Lee. I had too much proof that this stuff about imagine a red Maserati in your driveway and it must appear. Imagine checks in the mail and they must come. This is all just insanity. So I was super confident. And if you notice on the book cover, it says that there were 6 New York Times best-selling authors, and there's 5 other outrageously successful people that wanted to be part of this book and tell their story of how positive thinking is not the answer, you know?
Well, that's, look, everybody is like on the edge of their chairs. Like, one, we're not used to people saying, hey, I'm an alcoholic and a cocaine, you know, I mean, that is so brutal, but so authentic, because I've been on stage with some really, really big names. And the truth is they're on stage and their green room is totally different. Yeah. And there's a lot of fake people in the world, and it was very disillusioning to me, frankly. But you know, I'm still here to tell the story. Okay, so the next question I really had was, you know, positive thinking, we don't want anyone to think positive thinking is bad, but there are benefits to positive thinking, and then there are limitations. So let's go into those.
Yeah, well, the benefits, I mean, the greatest benefit ever, we'll just go to the heartmath.org. I love this organization, heartmath.org. And they came out with studies that they did a number of years ago showing that when you have a positive thought in a brain, there's a cascade of chemicals, neurotransmitters, dopamine, GABA, serotonin racing through the brain. So when you say something that's really exciting, you know, something that's really positive, like, I can't wait to get on stage tonight and to thrill these people and to move them. And, you know, like, that releases all these chemicals that are awesome. So we want to say that positive thinking is great, because I still do an hour every day. The first hour of every morning is based on meditation, prayer, journaling, affirmations. I do that. I haven't stopped it. The only thing is that now I do differently. What I did up until 1996 is that I follow that up by doing work I don't want to do on a daily basis. But, you know, we get into the habit of that positiveness because it lifts us. But remember this. Your positive affirmation or thought, or when you stare at the vision board, if it makes you feel good, that's awesome, but it is not sustainable. So in some of the law of attraction, nonsensical, ridiculous lies, outright lies, and one on Instagram 2 days ago that I just did a whole article about, is that this woman came on and she said she's a law of attraction expert, law of attraction certified teacher, and she said, if you ever have a negative or limiting thought, you're living life wrong. The only thoughts you should ever have are positive ones to attract the life you want. Now, that's just insanity. You know, it sounds so cute and pretty, but it's just insanity. We have to be willing to deal with, and in the book, Positive Thinking, and I'll give you an example. One of my best friends lost her son, 6-year-old Jesse. Scarlett Lewis is my best friend. Her son, 6-year-old Jesse, was one of the 20 kids murdered in the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre that we all remember. It happened now about 7-8 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long. So Adam Lanza was the murderer. He showed up at school. He killed these kids. He killed 3 teachers or teachers' aides. And Scarlett was called down to the school. They sat for hours outside, and then finally she was pulled into a room and was told that her son was murdered that day. I had invited her on my radio show at that time. I was on XM satellite radio, and I said to her, whenever you're ready, Scarlett. And it was 8 months after the murder, and she said, I'm ready. I said, you're ready? And she said, yeah. I go, it's been 8 months since Jesse was murdered. And she said, David, I've got this. Let's do it. And she tells a story in my book, Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life. And the story is this. Friends, well-meaning friends, were coming up to her and saying things like, God needed another angel. I guess Jesse's time was up. He did everything on earth he was supposed to do. Now he needs to be home. Like, that's insanity. To a mom who's grieving, to say to your friend, oh, you know, he's in a better place. What? Yes. A 6-year-old's in a better place than kindergarten? Give me a break, right? See, this is the insanity of the world of positive thinking. And all these law of attraction people that say, you know, don't ever have a negative thought because you'll invite that into your life. That's just craziness. So when I said to Scarlett, tell me how you got on the radio, I said, Scarlett, how after 8 months could you be on my show talking about the death of your son? I go, I'm shocked. I don't think I could. Tell me about it. And she said, David, well, I went into the pain. I went into the rage, the anger, the grief, the sadness, and all these people are telling me to stay positive, and I just obliterated their thoughts. I stayed away from them. If someone started to go down that road about positive thinking, I would just turn around and walk away. That's not how you heal. How you heal is going into those things that you don't want to deal with. And that's why 8 months later, I can be on your stage or on your show, and I can say to you, I've forgiven the murderer of my son by 75%. And Lee, when I had her on the next year, it was 90%. The last time I had her on, it was like 98%. And she said, I'm forgiving him not for him. I'm forgiving him so that he doesn't take the rest of my life. But in order for her to get to that place, she had to go down some nasty tunnels. And so positive thinking is not where we want people to go. We want you to use positive thinking to lift yourself up. But then, as the book says, the reality of success is a lot more detailed and difficult and involved than just thinking cute, positive thoughts.
I agree with that. My husband got killed on Christmas Eve a number of years ago, and I heard all of those kind of statements. He's in a better place. I wanted to punch them in the face because he was living with me. I mean, this is a long time ago, and I'm thinking, really? You're telling me he's in a better place not living with me? And so I really withdrew from all of that. I lived in the library, I think, for like almost a year, going through grief counseling, doing everything I needed to do to process what had happened.
Right.
I wasn't going to stay there, but I did get it out of my system, so to speak, versus I think a lot of people keep denying how they truly feel, or, people get betrayed, or, their partner, has betrayed them, or their business partner has stolen all their money. And, you have to admit that this has happened and then create some kind of plan about that. So I can't imagine losing a child. It was certainly horrific to lose a husband.
Yes.
But, I think we need to hear this because people actually are shamed about having authentic feelings.
Lee, what you just said is so important. Like, we have the feelings of insecurity, anger, rage, resentment for a reason. They're there for a reason. They're there to help us process and move ahead. The foreword to the book, Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life, was written by a good friend of mine, Dr. Eldon Taylor. Eldon Taylor is probably the preeminent researcher in the power of the subconscious mind. He wrote the foreword to the book, and he, like I'm just really fed up with this whole secret law of attraction nonsense. And so what he wrote in the foreword to the book is so powerful. He said, listen, if your thoughts were that powerful that you could attract whatever you think about in your life, think about the dangerous places that we would already have had to go through. When you think about, and I can understand this, you're 8 years old and you want to kill your mother because you can't have coffee or your chocolate cookies. You wanted to get rid of your science teacher because you got an F. So if there was a way I could get, there's like all these things that we think. And what he says in the foreword is, thank God they don't come true. And it's the same thing with your positive thoughts. Just because you imagine a red Maserati in your driveway, I mean, if it were to happen, Lee, that is simply called a miracle. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with that you attracted it with your thought. Hell, if it was that easy, you and I would not have jobs anymore. There would be no need for another book to be written in the world of personal growth. Every coach, counselor, minister, priest, rabbi would be out of business because all we need to do is think about what we want and it must appear. Isn't that adorable? And yet, in 27 years of, when I interviewed Wayne Dyer right away, he told me about his addiction to nicotine, cocaine, and alcohol. Deepak Chopra, two-pack-a-day smoker, as a cardiologist in a Boston hospital. Very first time I had him on my show, he explained, because I always ask my guests, what's your foibles? What have you overcome? What is your greatest challenge? Lee, I get so excited about this topic because not one person, and we can talk about athletes, Keith Mitchell, former NFL All-Pro linebacker from New Orleans, a great friend of mine who we write one of his stories in the book. We can look at Jenna Elfman, the actress, Meatloaf, the singer, Kenny Loggins. I've interviewed all these people. I've worked with Kenny Loggins before. Not one of them would ever say that their success came from an affirmation, a vision board, or a thought. They all worked their butt off. Now, if 20% of their success came from because they were an energetic, positive, giving person, fantastic. But it'll never be more than that unless it's a miracle.
So the next question I had was a really big question. It's about belief. And you say in your books, beliefs will always win. So between positive thinking versus beliefs, beliefs will always win. So let's talk about that.
I love this topic. This is such a great one. All right. So you have this positive thought, that I am earning $1 million this year. Now, let me make this really clear because a lot of people love this affirmation. If you're earning $1 million a year, you're earning $82,000 a month. Let's let that sink in. $82,000 a month. About approximately 1 to 2% of the U.S. population has the skills, drive, determination, and the guts to earn $82,000 a month. Okay, it takes a lot to earn $82,000 a month. Most of us don't have what it takes to earn $82,000 a month. And yet you're saying I am earning $1 million a year, which is basically you're saying I'm earning $82,000 a month, which is, once again, we're lying, right? So let's talk about this. So we have a positive statement. I am earning $1 million a year. All right. The belief underneath that is going to allow you to earn $1 million or not. If you really believe that affirmation is true, you will move Mount Everest to make it happen. You will work 14, 16, 18 hours a day without a vacation for 5 years. Come on, let's get serious, right? That's what it takes. So if your beliefs are not lined up with your cute, pretty, positive thoughts, you ain't going nowhere, baby. You're staying stuck right where you are. If you don't believe you deserve a size 8 body and you're a size 24, you can go ahead and do all the vision boards in the world you want, and it ain't moving a thing. The belief is what drives, and the belief comes from the subconscious mind, which is a huge part of this book. We devote a complete chapter going into the power of the conscious mind, which is this big, compared to the power of the subconscious mind, which is that big. Our beliefs reside in the subconscious, and many times, I can tell you what your beliefs are. Your beliefs about your body right now are reflected in the body you have. Your beliefs about money are reflected in the amount of money you make. Your beliefs about love is reflected in the type of relationship you have. So if you want to figure out what your beliefs are, just look around you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, I'm laughing, okay, guys, but I'm not laughing at anyone other than myself, because I used to teach the opposite for 16 years. So I make amends all the time. You know, I say to people, Lee, if you're watching me on Lee and you've ever heard of me before 1996, I'm so sorry, because I was probably teaching crap, okay? So now I'm back going, I apologize. I was wrong. Let's get it right this time.
So one chapter I really loved, which will be obvious, it's the chapter 4 in your book. It's called the 5,000-pound gorilla of success. Now, I fell in love with this. So let's talk about the 5,000-pound gorilla of success. Oh. This is our kind of entrepreneurial stuff here.
It is. You know, where these things come from, Lee, who knows, right? I mean, you know, as a writer, we're writing and all of a sudden, wow, that's awesome. I love that. You know, that's kind of how it happens. So the 5,000-pound gorilla of success, that's your subconscious mind. That gorilla is sitting back there. Now, the subconscious has 2 assets that it brings into your world. Oh, let me say 2 functions, not assets, 2 functions. Number one, the subconscious, the most powerful part of the subconscious mind is that it keeps you in alignment with what you're thinking right now. So as an example, if you say that mornings are horrendous and you're not a morning person and you'd make more money if you could get up, but you're just not, it's just not your circadian rhythm, baby. Okay. That subconscious mind has accepted that as a reality. That's your 5,000-pound gorilla. And it will keep you stuck, not getting up in the morning, because you've fed it a pattern that you're not a morning person. And most of us morning people or non-morning people say it all the time. Oh, I'm just not a morning person. I'm just not. I would do it, but I'm just not a morning person. Well, guess what? You say that 20,000 times between the age of 10 and 50, and your subconscious mind grabs onto that with all of its might, and it will thwart as many attempts as you can give it in order to become a morning person. However, this is where the gorilla comes in. If you feed the gorilla correctly, the bananas it wants, the bananas it likes on a daily basis, you will eventually turn that subconscious mind into a positive ally versus a negative one. And I've got a great story out of that book with a buddy of mine, Ray Higdon, that you might, I don't know, you may have crossed Ray, or if you haven't, you know, you will in the future. So when we had the huge crash in 2006, 2007, Ray, myself, and a bunch of other people were heavily into real estate investing, and Ray lost everything. I did too, but this story is about Ray. So he contacted me, and we were associates back then. We weren't friends or anything, we were just associates. And he contacted me and he said, David, he goes, I'm a single dad, 2 kids. I'm losing my house. I've lost everything. I don't know what to do, where to go. I have no money. Can we meet? And I said, sure. I said, let's meet for lunch. And I go, and we'll have a session during lunch. He goes, I can't even afford lunch. I said, don't worry about it. I'll cover lunch, no charge for the session. Let's talk. So he talked for about 45 minutes about, all the stress and strain he was under and what happened. And at the end of it, I said to him, I said, Ray, I go, the only thing I can tell you is this. You have outrageous energy. And for every entrepreneur that isn't at the financial level you want to be at yet, listen very closely. I said, you have so much energy and so much passion. All you need to do is find something to sell that you love, and you will be back on tap in a very short period of time. So we ended our thing. He went home. On the way home, he stopped and bought the book, The Secret. And he went home and he was listening to what I said, but he really liked The Secret, because The Secret said, make a vision board. Don't worry about doing the work. Everything's going to come to you if you just think correctly. So he did it for 30 days, Lee, and he found himself at the end of 30 days in worse shape than he was when he left me. So then he said, okay, let me go back to what David said. I got to find something to sell. I got to put my energy into it. So he did. He found a network marketing product that he really liked. So he went out to start selling. But if anyone knows anything about network marketing, you know how hard it is to get momentum, because there's 10 billion other people trying to sell what you're selling. So he's plugging along and not much is happening. And all of a sudden, a guy says to him, you're not doing enough work. Now, this is where the gorilla comes in. And Ray said, what do you mean? I'm contacting several people a day. And the guy says, go after 20 rejections a day. Don't stop. 5 days a week until you have 20 people saying no. So Ray got really strong, and he decided, and this is what he started feeding. Now, this is how, these are bananas, okay? So at the end of every day, when you go after 20 rejections and you get 20 rejections, you have just fed your gorilla 10,000 pounds of bananas. It's happy. It wants you to do the uncomfortable, because the gorilla, your subconscious mind, also knows this. The most successful people in the world have earned it. They've done what 90% of other people won't do. Let me repeat that. The most successful people have done what 90% of other people won't do. 6 months later, Ray Higdon is earning $50,000 a month. Today, he earns over $1 million a month, using the same strategies that he started in 1990 or 2009. And that's the gorilla. The more you feed it, the stronger it gets, and it won't back down. It's like if you go to the gym for 300 days in a year, the odds of you dropping out of your exercise program are so small, because the gorilla has gotten such reinforcement from your positive action that it doesn't want to go backwards.
Okay, I wanted, in your book, you have actually talked about this 365 days a year a lot. And I've done a lot of programs on habit busting and things like that. And, it used to be that, people would say, oh, you can make a change in 21 days. I remember standing on stage and saying that. Yeah. And then I moved it to 28 days. I moved it to 3 months. As time went along, I'm like, I'm really stretching it, because I'm working with clients and I'm realizing, 21 days, we're not there. 28 days, we're not there. 3 months, we're not there. And I really, I love the honesty of your book of, you got to work and you got to do all those damn uncomfortable, hard things to do. And that if you could do it 365 days, you will not go back to the old habit. So is there any kind of scientific, technical backup you can share with us about why that's true, other than the obvious?
Well, the most obvious for me is that after 40 years, I finally learned the truth about success. And that is, we all want the shortcut. We want the instant gratification. Hell, I lost all my money in the real estate market because of greed, because I wanted to make as much money doing as little as possible. You know, and I did. I made a ton of money doing as little as possible, and then I lost it all because that's the way life works. But the 365 days thing came up. It's funny you mentioned the 21 days. For years, we used to teach the 21-day thing until I realized that it didn't work either. And so, but here's the reason for 365. Whether we're trying to stop eating sugar, which is the #1 damaging food substance in the world, sugar is much more damaging than salt and high blood pressure. Sugar is an inflammatory. It leads to heart disease, obesity, diabetes, intestinal issues, and everything else in the world. If you want to get really clean of an addiction, just don't use, and I say that like it's easy, don't use the alcohol, the sugar, the white flour, the fat, the whatever you lean on for 365 days. You're going to go through every cycle, holidays, birthdays, funerals, weddings. You're going to go through boredom, excitement. You're going to go through, in 365 days, Lee, if we can stay on a path of 365 straight days, we will turn that subconscious around and you will not crave sugar. And if you, like, we do a lot of work in the world of relationships, and the #1 addiction in the world is codependency. Codependency is very easily described. There's 1,000 definitions, but one is either dating someone for their potential to change. So, you know, you're seeing someone and they've got a lot of potential, but they ain't there yet. So staying is called codependency. Staying in a relationship that's based on emotional and or physical abuse is called codependency. There's no victims. After the first time you get hit, there's no victims. The first time you get shoved, there's no victim. The first time you get called a name in public by your partner, you're not a victim anymore if you go back. And,
Right.
and I take a very strong stance with that. But we know that if people can stay out of relationships for 365 days and do the internal work, why do I date these type of people? Why do I stay when I see the red flags? If you can stay single and do the work for 365 days, the odds are, Gene, or Lee, you will not move back into your old practices. But I haven't seen that in a 28-day or a 21-day or even a 3-month program. Most people, if they have a program for 3 months, at the end of 3 months, they're going to slide back. But if you can stay strong for a year, the odds of sliding back after a year are like infinitesimal.
So for the people who are not on the video on our membership site and who are just listening to it, I'm on page like 51 of his book, and there's a lot of yellow and copies and stuff. But you call this human nature, David, where that the subconscious mind and the conscious mind are basically from birth is that we've been programmed to try to take the easy road.
Amen.
Now, you made one kind of observation I do want to say. You said unless they were raised in an extremely toxic, addictive, or abusive environment, most babies' needs are met instantaneously, and you went on. Now, this struck me because I grew up in what I just described, the very toxic, difficult, horrible childhood. And so nothing in my life was ever the easy button. Now, instead of terming myself a victim about that, looking back on life, it was no fun, I can tell you that. But it has made me a warrior,
yes,
a gladiator. I will do whatever it takes to honor my word, to reach the goal I want to, if it means 14 hours a day, every day of the week. But I actually grew up with that energy of having to do that to survive.
Yeah. And you're one of the anomalies, Lee, that it came from that horrendous background, and you realized early on that responsibility was yours, that your success, your happiness was based on you, not others. Most people don't go through that. You know, and so for you to be the gladiator, the warrior, after going through that, it shows that people can do it. So your story is crucially important, because not everyone is raised in a beautiful environment. Most of us, though, are raised in an environment where our needs are instantaneously met. And we described human nature in 1996 when I created the definition as our desire to get the most out of life with minimal effort. And that's what's running the show. Listen, we have 70% of the United States that is overweight and or obese. And according to a University of Florida study, only 6% of that population has any genetic link at all, which means it's all lifestyle. which means that it's easy to just come home and be exhausted and to eat and to eat and to eat instead of exercising. And so if we're overweight, we're looking for the latest fat burning pill. We're looking for the latest green tea pill. We're looking for the latest, what's that Suzanne Summers thighs, what was that thigh thing she did?
Thigh Master.
Thigh Master. So, we want to spend $19.95 on a piece of equipment that won't do anything because we don't have to do anything. It's like kind of a perfect match, right? And your effort will give you your reward. So if you want to go with the Thigh Master, baby, you look at effort and reward. There's no effort, so there's not going to be any reward, And the human nature screws us over. We have instant gratification, entitlement. We've got all of this crap that goes with this, I believe life should be easier than it is type of a thing. But once again, Lee, and the stories in the book prove it, if you're willing to break this whole mass consciousness thought that, I want to get life, the most out of life in the easiest way possible. If you can shatter that and go back to what our grandparents did. Our grandparents were up at 4 in the freaking morning. They were out in the fields, or great grandparents. They were working until 6 or 8 at night. That's how people can become successful. Our books don't sell themselves. You mentioned something relative to that earlier. We are out there hustling. And even though we have 10 books, 4 #1 bestsellers, the only way they became #1 bestsellers is because we work our butt off.
Absolutely. So all the entrepreneurs that I'm really pleased about, all of the people in Millionaire Smarts and the other coaching groups that I work with, they're all true workers. And it's, some of our problem is the people we hire are not true workers, but we definitely have to understand that. So we have a little bit of time left. So I do want us to kind of end on the positive note, though, of why are we using affirmations, visualizations, and prayers as action tools? Because I use all those things, and they have been very beneficial to me. So I believe that people who have used them still can use them, but just have to put them in the right framework.
Yeah, it's all about perspective, Lee. If you look at how people lose weight, we'll just say how they lose weight. They lose weight by doing the right thing every day. Doing the right thing every day doesn't mean that it has to be 6 hours in the gym. It's just making the correct food choices. It's making the correct exercise choices, and it's just doing it on a daily basis. Discussing this right now, it's the same thing. When we have these tools of affirmation, journaling, prayer, meditation, they're all just little adjuncts for us doing the really hard work. So when you do that, and I believe first thing in the morning is the best, but if someone wants to do it in the afternoon or evening, fantastic, doesn't matter to me. I like first thing in the morning because it starts the day off. We're reading inspirational stuff. We're writing and journaling about things that are going great and things that maybe are challenging us. We're going into meditation and prayer. It's a way to prepare us for the day, but it ends there. We're not going to be able to meditate our way to success or meditate our way to sobriety, or we're not going to be able to affirm our way to wealth. But we do want to use these tools of the brain to the highest level possible. And then the other thing we say, and I know you do this as well, Lee, is that we say, write down all the people that you interact with regularly on a weekly basis. And then next to them, write down, are they equal to you, above you, or below you? Now, entrepreneurs who are successful will do this exercise, and they'll look around and they're going to have this powerful support group around them of people that are go-getters, that are happy, that are healthy, that are free of addictions, that are all that stuff, right? But if you look around yourself, and most clients I give this exercise to, at the very most 25% of who they hang out with are above them. And I would like that to be 50%. I would like that the people we interact with on a weekly basis, I would like half of them to have something much better than we have. Maybe a much better body, a much better relationship, a much better connection to their spiritual path, a much better, income. Like, I want you to be surrounded with people that have something you want, because then you're more inspired. But a lot of us, even entrepreneurs, if we do this exercise, we could go, wow, I've got like 25% of people that are pulling me down. I've got 25% of people that are just getting through life. You may be surprised to find out that who you interact with on a regular basis isn't at the level that you really want. Now, and I'm not saying this judgmentally to say these people are bad people, but you may want to decrease your time with those individuals that don't have the same philosophy. I started out in sports psychology in 1986, and that was my first step into counseling and therapy, was working with athletes. And I can tell you that Michael Jordan didn't have guys that he hung around with that were worse players than he was. I don't have any of the athletes that I've worked with over the years that surrounded themselves with adequate athletes. They all went to the toughest gyms to have the best competition. And the same thing should happen with money and bodies and everything else. Look at who you're surrounded with, because we slowly become that group of people. If they're better than us, awesome. If they're not, let's change.
So I know you don't know me very well, David, but when I'm on stage, and primarily it's all about entrepreneurs, I refer to the other part of the world as civilians. And that, you have to be very careful how you spend your time with civilians, because they get a regular paycheck, they are into security, they have a totally different view and wiring than we do. And often, sometimes, we work from home and our neighbors think we don't work, because their mindset is they're not programmed to think like an entrepreneur or a business owner. And if anybody you hang around, I think it's originally the Jim Rohn quote of, the top 5 people, but it's been contributed to so many people over the years. So one of the things I did want to talk to you about was, speaking of people you hang around, is that you interview some of the top authors and success experts of our day, and you have found evidence that they concur that action is the pathway to true success. And I think that really is the core of our message today. And you said you have to do things you don't want to do. Just before I started this interview, I had to meet with my bookkeeping person, and I get in the car afterwards and feel like, I wish I did not have to do that. I mean, it's just, it's just painful, but I have to do it. You have to know what's going in, what's going out, and pay attention. So even though I don't like doing it, I have to do it. But share with us some of your knowledge of, all these very famous people.
Yeah, well, Usain Bolt, the great sprinter from Jamaica, when asked how is it that he continues to win all these gold medals, and his competitors are not even close, and they really aren't close. I mean, he's blowing the track away constantly. And he said, my coach asked me to be on the track at 6 a.m. I hate mornings. I'm on the track at 6 a.m. My coach wants me in the gym at 2 o'clock. David, I hate lifting weights. I'm in the gym at 2 o'clock. My coach wants me back on the track at 6 o'clock for 3-a-day practices. I hate 3-a-day practices. I'm on the track at 6 o'clock. And I hear this over and overly. I mentioned earlier, I wrote books for 20 years, and I never really had a great success hit until the book we're talking about today. But I had to keep writing. I wanted to be successful as an author. My other books did okay, but nothing really all that great until this one. But I knew if I just kept doing the work on a daily basis, it was 20 years. 20 years of people saying, hey, did you get a #1 bestseller yet? No, not yet, but I've got a new book coming. That's the attitude of the most successful entrepreneurs. It's not about getting what we want right now. If that happens, awesome. But the key trait that all these people I've interviewed is, even when they weren't getting what they want, Lee, it did not affect their effort. If we could write that down, even when we're not getting what we want, it can't affect our effort in the world, because that's the type of attitude. Dr. Joe Vitale from The Secret, who I write about in the book, I interviewed Dr. Joe, and I said, hey, Joe, on The Secret, it says that you imagine checks coming in the mail as a homeless person and you became a millionaire. My God, tell me what you were doing, And he started laughing. He said, well, David, they left out one important part of the story. I said, no kidding, Joe, that shocks me, And he goes, yeah, I go, please share with my audience the part they left off. He goes, working 14-hour days, 7 days a week for years is how I became a millionaire, David. But they left that part out of the book. And, your story, my story, Joe Vitale, my mentor, Joe Cerulli, was homeless for years and became a multi-trillionaire. in a business that they say you can't make money. He runs a health club and he makes millions and millions of dollars a year. He's got private jets, homes all over the place. People told him, Joe, you only work in health clubs because you love it, not to make money. Joe didn't believe that. You know, and just because I love Joe, he's been my mentor since 1986. He lives in Gainesville, Florida, a tiny little city, 150,000 people. But he has one health club and your entrepreneurs are going to love this. He has one health club that's 100,000 square feet. That's like a mall. If for people that don't know square footage, that's about a mall. You know, he has another one that's 50,000 square feet. He has another one that's 25,000 square feet. And it's all in a tiny city of 150,000 people that he makes millions of dollars off of. His number one competitor is the University of Florida. He gets their students to pay him money instead of going to their free athletic center. You know, it's like, but how did he do it? He did it the way that everyone is doing it, is that you're going to get pushed back, you're going to get knocked down. Your effort isn't related to your end result. The effort stays the same regardless of what your end result is. That will get you success.
Well, that I think is such a great message, because we're living in the world of the Kardashians who, you know, the whole purpose of life is to be famous. And I'm watching social media and, you know, just at the some mainstream media, you know, they don't cover stories about people who really work hard and, you know, and 20-year overnight success and 10 books, and then you became a bestseller. The people who get all the PR tend to be the overnight successes that nobody really knows the depth to, or how many people help them get there. It just looks to the average civilian person as if they just arrived and that was magical.
Yeah.
By the way, I call those people ceiling huggers.
Ceiling huggers, tell me.
Ceiling huggers, that they just have this lofty idea that, you know, success is going to fall from the ceiling. And yeah. I wish that was the case, but it is obviously not the case. No. So with that said, David, how can people get in touch with you?
We've got great things going on our website. The website, Lee, is so easy to remember. It's Talk David. TALKDavid.com, talkdavid.com, because that's all I do. It's a appropriate name for a website, talkdavid.com. And when they go there, they can see, you know, we've got all kinds of free stuff. We have a free meditation audio. We have a free book exchange that's ongoing. And this has to do with The Secret and the Law of Attraction. Send us in your Secret or Law of Attraction book, and we'll send you my #1 bestseller that actually teaches you how to be successful. Absolutely free. That's going on. We also have something really cool. It's called David Essel's Daily Video Boost, and everything I'm talking about is free. The Daily Boost, it's a 5-day-a-week subscription service, but your subscription costs that much. Okay? Zero. And every day you get a 3-minute video from me just talking about a new topic or a way to stay refreshed or energized. So everything is at talkdavid.com. And Lee, I got to tell you, I appreciate you so much, because your passion and energy of bringing me on, your interaction, your knowledge of our subject is awesome. And I just have to hand it to you. First of all, I know you're going out of town or you're doing something really big, and I'm going to wish you a great time. But I want to thank you for even thinking about bringing this message on, because the whole purpose that we even put it on our website is that our goal is to lift 2 million people a day. We do. We have statistics to prove we do. And we want to keep that going. And because of your kindness to bring me on, we're able to reach more people.
Well, thank you, David. We deeply appreciate your honesty, your being authentic, your sharing of, you know, everything isn't just, you know, rose petals falling from the sky. And the real message that you had that I really loved was, yes, we can have positive thinking as long as we're not lying to ourselves. Yes, we can still use affirmations and vision boards and all those great tools, and they do help us, because we can become self-fulfilling prophecies if they help us towards the goal we want to be. but we don't want to lie to ourselves. We don't want to go into denial. And that the main important thing is to do the things that you don't like to do that are proven to bring you massive success. So with that, I want to thank you very much, David. We're going to call it a wrap. Thank you very much.